I knew in my bones that I'm going to invest and I'm going to keep doing this. And so the key question was with whom and in what format. You can't just put your head down and do great work and expect that everything will work out. You have to play the game in a certain way. And at the end of the day, what success looks like for us is being one of the 5 to 10 firms that many founders want to go to for their seed or Series A round as they're thinking about who they want to lead that round.
Welcome to Trailblazers, the podcast where we sit down with contrarian tech leaders who found conventional success in unconventional ways. Today on the show, I am so thrilled to be joined by Nikhil Basu Trivedi. Nikhil is co-founder and general partner at Footwork, as you can see on his lovely sweatshirt, an early-stage focused venture firm in San Francisco. Footwork leads seed and Series A rounds in companies with early signs of product market fit across both consumer technology and the consumerization of enterprise technology. The firm was founded in 2021 and is investing its second fund with $400 million of AUM. Footwork's portfolio companies include Illicit, Felt, GPT-0, Tracksuit, Watershed, and Windborne. Nikhil was previously a managing director at Shasta Ventures, where he led the firm's investments in Athelis, Canva, Class Dojo, Color, Frame.io, Imperfect Foods, Lattice, and The Farmer's Dog. He started his career on the investing team at Insight Partners and on the founding team at Artsy. Nikhil graduated from Princeton University with a degree in molecular biology and finance. Two very different worlds. Let's welcome Nikhil. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Erica.
Okay, can I call you NBT? I feel like that's your nickname.
You can totally call me that. I think, I was never called that growing up until the college days where someone started calling me NBT, one of my friends, I think Sean actually, one of my college roommates. And then it sort of started to become more of a thing during my now, 15 years in venture. So I'm totally comfortable being called by my initials.
I love it. I feel like more people should do that. A lot of people go with the one-namer, like the Beyonce, Cher, Zendaya, but what about the initials?
Yeah, well, and mine is somewhat unique because my parents put their surnames together to form mine.
Ooh.
So my mom's surname is Basu, my dad's surname is Trivedi, and mine is Basu space Trivedi. No hyphen, just a space. Very confusing for people. Lots of people think I'm using my middle name everywhere.
That's what I was going to say. Basu's not your middle name.
No, it's legally my surname. My last name is Basu space Trivedi. So I've sort of had to have it everywhere, and may as well turn it into a thing.
Totally.
Thankfully, others have come up with that versus me.
I love that. And I mean, I might be projecting here, but your Substack's called Next Big Thing, same initials. Was that just a crazy coincidence, or was that intentional?
It just sort of, it felt right. And so it's been a fun thing to be able to play around with. And, I've said for a while, so much of our job is searching for the next big thing. And so when I was setting that Substack up, I just thought this is going to be a fun thing to call it, and let's see if it sticks.
I love it. I love consistency. You should honestly, even when you talk about your portfolio, come up with something that's NBT letters too. Just keep it going.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. So before we get into the meat of the interview, we like to start with an icebreaker. Okay. You may have heard this before. We like to talk about meaty stuff here, so we're going to go right for the hard questions. What is the hardest part and has been the hardest part of your journey so far? The part that almost broke you?
I would say on the professional side, when in 2019, a bunch of things changed at my former firm, Shasta. A couple of the partners I was closest to left the firm, and I was suddenly, in a small group of partners where I realized we're just not aligned on core values and principles. We see the future very differently. I was suddenly out in the cold, and I felt like I've done this job really well. I have a strong body of work of investments. I was 30 at the time, and I'd built up. I sort of really invested in the firm and sort of trying to build the firm alongside these folks, and several of them were close friends and mentors, but unfortunately they were not the people who were going to take the firm forward. And so I realized I had to do something else. And I hadn't sort of confronted a moment like that in my career. I had sort of actively turned down lots of opportunities to go join other firms. But in retrospect, it was an amazing thing. It was an amazing gift, because I got to try to play for the global maximum thing that I really want to do with my career, which ended up being starting Footwork. in the moment, it was really hard. And I realized that, you can't just put your head down and do great work and expect that everything will work out. You have to play the game in a certain way. And I just had never sort of been educated about playing the game. I'd never thought about it that way. And probably a lot of those things are the reason why I ended up starting a firm versus doing something else as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that can be very devastating. I mean, even like 1 year later with COVID happening, there's so many other shifts that can happen, not just partners, but, obviously economically and globally. What did you know at that time you were going to start another firm? Did you think you were going to start another company? Did you think you were going to join your firm? Like, talk to me about what made you want to actually start a venture firm. Because like you said, you weren't as up to speed on like the politics and sort of navigating that, but that's so much of running a firm. So I'd love to hear more about the like early innings of starting it and what made you want to do venture versus something else.
Well, I knew, so I started in venture back at Insight Partners here in New York back in 2010. And so, fast forward to late 2019, early 2020, I'd spent almost 10 years in venture, and I knew I just absolutely love this job. And I've woken up almost every day for 15 plus years now, really loving the day-to-day of this work, being really fired up to meet entrepreneurs. I feel it's kind of crazy that we get paid to do this job because it doesn't feel like work, and it is rarely felt like work for me for this whole time. So I knew in my bones that I'm going to invest and I'm going to keep doing this. And so the key question was with whom and in what format. And so I did talk to a number of firms to try to figure out, is my set of people out there to go join a firm and do this with them. And I just didn't get really excited about any of those opportunities and didn't feel like there was a perfect fit. And percolating in the back of my mind for a while was the idea of going off and starting a new firm. I'd been an entrepreneur in college. That entrepreneurial itch never left me. And so I just didn't know if I could actually go do it, actually go raise the capital from LPs. And I didn't know who I would do it with. And so in 2020, I wrote the blueprint for what I thought a new firm could look like. I took that blueprint to several people that I thought would be amazing partners to go do it with because I'd gotten to know them for many years. We'd been on boards together. And through that process, my partner Mike and I aligned to go start Footwork together. And then we were really fortunate that we were able to raise our first fund very quickly and had a great set of institutions put us in business. And so that's how it unfolded.
It's amazing. How did you decide on Mike, or how did Mike decide on you? Because I think what also a lot of people don't understand about this business is, just the person with the capital and the idea isn't always the one who like gets to choose. It's a two-way street. Like founders with investors, they pick you. So talk to me about you picking Mike and Mike picking you.
So I reached out to Mike in spring 2020, just as the pandemic had hit. Actually what really happened is there was a tweet from a reporter, Jason Del Rey. He said, Patagonia should name Mike Smith its next CEO. And I texted that to Mike and I said, hey, hope you're well, man. Do you want me to amplify this tweet? Like, is this the type of thing that you want to do? Or do you want to talk to me about starting a venture firm together? And so I shot my shot via text, and that's what led to us starting to discuss what it could look like to do this together. Backing up, we had been on a board together, a company called Imperfect Foods, for 3 years. Mike was an independent board member at Imperfect. I had led the seed and Series A rounds at Shasta. And so we got to know each other very well in that journey. We started to have dinners together. We realized we were very aligned on a number of values and principles through those board sessions, through a bunch of things that unfolded in the Imperfect journey, real challenges that we had to go through as a board. And so that was why he was one of the several folks that I thought I could actually see myself doing this with him. And then what happened is Mike was the one who just very quickly it clicked with. We had this set of questions that we went through to try to figure out, should we do this together?
Was it the first round, like founder questions, or was it something else?
It was actually derived from what Chris Peck and Jordan Cooper did when they started Pace Capital together.
Did they publish that, or was it more just a friend? Okay.
So they published this set of 33 questions that you could go look up. Mike and I took that list and we turned into 37, or I think I turned into 37 questions first.
You added 4?
We added 4. We maybe tweaked a few of the others.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. We chatted, I think, on a Friday for the first time, like from that text that I sent him. And Saturday morning, he texted me saying, "Hey, I've done the questions." And so instantly he engaged. And what we did is we, in a blank Google Doc, he pasted in his answers to the questions, and then I pasted in mine, and then we stared at it side by side. So we independently, wrote our answers, and then we saw on so many of these dimensions, such as what do you look for in partners, what are your economic goals, and over what time frame, how do you think about attribution, how do you think about generational transition. We saw we were super aligned on so many of those dimensions, but then we also saw we were very different in skill sets and experiences. Mike came to Footwork from having been on the company building side, having been at a company called Stitch Fix for their whole journey from 5 people to being a public company as their COO and CFO. I'd been investing for 10 years at that time. And so we just got very excited as we started to go deep on this about our combination, and so I think we picked each other as a result of feeling like we're going to really enjoy doing this together, and we have a chance to be really great at it.
Yeah, well, I also think feeling that excitement from him right away is so much of a good partnership. Like, there's nothing more defeating than being excited and then having someone take a few days to get back to you.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you about partnerships, because obviously, you mentioned there was one with Shasta where things didn't work out in sort of a long-term format. Now with Mike, things seem to be going well. What is something that you think is a very important partnership that no one talks enough about, and what is something that is actually not that important, that's really overhyped and it's okay and you can work past it? Because I think this is applicable to folks starting firms, but also founders. I mean, I get asked all the time, and especially at pre-seed, people are picking that long-term partner. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on like those two things.
Yeah, I think 2 of the really core things to get right are, number 1, the ability to communicate, and number 2, alignment on core values and principles.
This feels like dating advice too.
It's, I think, very similar.
Any partner advice, yeah.
Maybe exactly the same. And so those are the 2 things that I think enable you to actually have differences. And so, for example, I think there are some firms that believe every decision needs to be a consensus decision to sort of fully commit to an investment, and to then have the whole team be engaged on that company once it's in your portfolio. And I think that healthy debate and disagreement, and one person being really excited about a potential investment and the other being lukewarm about it, for example, actually is a very healthy thing and can lead to some of the best investments. Because if you have that ability to actually communicate about what each one is feeling about the opportunity and the decision, and if you're aligned on core values and sort of overall vision for like what you're doing together, then I think there's absolutely room to be able to disagree but commit with full conviction once you're invested in the company. So that's just one example of something that I think some people are dogmatic about, but I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely. When you gave Mike and all these other folks that like one pager on what you think Footwork could be or what you think a firm could be, what was your take? And this is there's a lot of interesting things happening in venture right now about everyone has their own hypothesis on which types of firms are going to succeed and which types of firms are not, because there's so many that have exploded in the past few years. I have my own opinions on it, but I want to hear yours. Like, where did you see the gap in the market, and what was the focus of that one pager? And like, this is where we can position ourselves in the market.
Yeah. So again, you have to rewind the clock to 2020.
Yeah, different time.
And I think it was like a 3-pager versus a 1-pager. But I'll try to give you some of the broad strokes. Yeah. And I do think most of them are very true to what Footwork ended up becoming and is today. So some of those pillars of what I thought would be awesome to put into the world with a new firm were, one, being totally focused at early stage, just leading rounds, a handful of investments every year. Each one really matters to us as a firm. Actually, like doing the work with our companies, and so joining boards or being actively engaged in every investment. So that was like one core pillar. Another is being human, not transactional in the relationships that we have. And, I think I'd seen board members be transactional with founders, partners be transactional with other partners, and really wanted to build a firm that was human first in all sorts of ways. A third key pillar was wanting to build a firm that actually operates as a team, where the whole actually is greater than the sum of the parts. So as an example of one of the things that Mike and I have done, we actually go to all the board meetings of our portfolio companies together after we invest. Not indefinitely, but for the first year after we invest, we say, if you want, you get both of us. And we have never talked about Mike's investments versus my investments. I don't even know how to delineate the portfolio based on individual. We only talk about Footwork's investments, and we work on every company together, and every founder knows both of us. And we have a number of examples of companies we've invested in where, maybe I was the first person that chatted with the company and the founder, and maybe I was the first one who got more excited about it. But today, Mike's the board member. Mike's the one who's more engaged on a day-to-day basis with the company. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because I think it shows it's like the reason for why you actually have a partnership, and an equal partnership in our case. So that was another like core pillar in that blueprint for a firm.
I think that's also, though, like a function of your portfolio construction, because you guys do so few investments.
Yep.
Like so many of these giant multi-stage firms, or even like firms that lead seeds and A's and they're still just doing early, they do so much output that it's like actually physically impossible to have like both partners or multiple partners show up. So I think that's also just like how you've structured it too, which allows for that.
I think that's fair, but I also think that we've glorified the individual inventor.
Totally.
Like I was on the Midas list this year, and that felt kind of awkward because we talk about our joint portfolio. We don't delineate. And so we've been trained as an industry, I think, to talk about like so-and-so's individual investments at that firm. And look, I benefited from this because I was able to take my track record from Shasta to go start Footwork. But when you're building a firm where you're equal partners, where it's very clear it's the last job you're going to do, or if it isn't, like something has gone horribly wrong, we're not trying to therefore like take our track records anywhere.
Yeah.
We're completely in it together. We feel very strongly it's more powerful to have every company be a Footwork company and not delineate.
Well, then maybe it is time to have a like Midas list by firm, and you sort of aggregate not just the individual folks.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I mean, even like the Forbes 30 under 30, and like there's certain folks that they oh, was I on the deal? Was I not? Was it I was the junior investor, but I really brought it to you. It gets sort of contentious.
And the story of most great investments is more complicated than
Totally.
It was one person that led the investment. And that's true for the companies I've been a part of. The stories I'm most excited about had multiple folks that were the reason for why the investment ended up being an investment for the firm, not just one person. And so anyway, that was another core pillar. And then the one that wasn't present in the original blueprint that Mike and I got very excited about was this combination of operating and investing experience in our backgrounds, and having that be sort of reflected in our equal partnership, and having founders who work with us have the chance to work with people who've been in multiple seats, and hopefully therefore have sort of more diversity in opinion and what they can bring to a company as well. So that was one that was not in that original blueprint, but felt like it really is exciting to do and to be able to do with Mike. And so hopefully that gives you a sense for sort of the texture of the firm that we wanted to build. I guess I should say what's not in there.
Yeah.
What I didn't have really strong perspective on was, is this a sector-focused fund in any way? Because so many of the companies that I've gravitated towards over the years, and now we have gravitated towards at Footwork, are interdisciplinary in nature. They're very difficult to put in a box.
On Trailblazers, we spotlight founders who succeed by doing things differently, not by following the playbook, but by rewriting it. Many of those unconventional builders and the VCs backing them run on Brex because it helps them scale with speed and focus. From smart corporate cards and high-yield banking to AI-powered expense management, Brex gives startups the financial stack they need from day one so they can spend more time building and less time managing back-office operations. More than 30,000 companies, from breakout startups like Anthropic and Cursor to global leaders like DoorDash and Plaid, trust Brex to help them spend smarter and move faster. That's why we, as a venture firm and also the podcast, run on Brex too. Sign up at brex.com/trailblazerspod to get started and claim exclusive rewards. That's brex.com/TRAILBLAZERSPOD. RocketReach is the leading sales and lead intelligence solution trusted by sales, marketing, recruiting, and business development teams to grow their businesses. Whether you're looking for a developer halfway around the world, a C-level executive in New York, or a potential investor in Silicon Valley, we connect you directly. With RocketReach, you can easily access the most comprehensive, accurate compilation of emails and phone numbers on Earth. That puts you in front of the right people faster and backs you up with a database that reaches across industries, markets, and titles, using AI to continually improve the quality of your contacts. With RocketReach, you can reach anyone so you can reach higher. Many of you know I love cold outreach. It's been the root of many of my success so far, and this is the tool that I've used the whole time. Trailblazer listeners get 15% off any plan at rocketreach.co/trailblazers. That's rocketreach.co/trailblazers. So that's one thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, is like how you label your style of investing and the companies you invest in. So I did my own research, as I always do, and I found this very interesting through line where a lot of the companies you've invested in have this like simplicity and clarity of mission, and it doesn't require 20 minutes to understand what they do. So I'll give some examples. Canva, we all know and love. Farmer's Dog, we all know. These are very obvious. Hinge, Imperfect Foods. Within about 7 seconds, I could explain it to my grandfather, and he would be like, got it, And even like Felt, that was another example. I was like, oh yeah, it's so obvious what they do. And so I wanted to ask you, and I don't want to put words in your own mouth, but do you talk about simplicity? Do you talk about clarity? And is that really at like sort of the core of how you invest? And if not, how do you think about it? I know it's hard to label, but I'd love to understand your perspective on that.
Yeah, I love that. And thanks for picking out those insights. You're right. I think Mike and I have slightly different tastes, but I've always felt that the most powerful ideas are easy to describe and simple for people to understand. They're simple yet really powerful. And so, yes, I think that is part of sort of the taste profile we have for companies that we end up falling in love with and wanting to invest in. Obviously, in hindsight, it's easy to see how some of these were simple ideas. I think in the moment of making a decision, sometimes they do feel that way, but sometimes they don't feel that way. Maybe the best investments actually sort of feel simple and obvious to the founder and to whoever gets excited to invest, but don't feel that way to the outside world. 10 years later, they do feel that way to the outside world. So yeah, I love that you picked that out from your deep research.
Yeah, I even think of like Confito, for example, because I think that some of the examples I just gave, it's sort of some consumer, some enterprise software, but that's like a classic enterprise software business.
Yep.
again, so simple. Like, I met Kara like a year, maybe 2 ago, and we had a conversation and I just got it. And so maybe even part of it too, and I'm projecting here, but it could be that you back founders who prioritize simple messaging and clarity in their messaging, even if the business models underlying it are quite complicated. Like in Imperfect Foods, like you can get it in theory, but it's actually kind of a complicated thing. But yeah, that's my take as an outsider.
I do think clarity of thought is such an important characteristic to have as a founder and as an investor.
How do you gauge that though? Is it just like an insane amount of expertise? Like we were talking about earlier about Rex, and who's a friend of both of ours, and he talks about like sort of like high output per minute and just this like insane, expert knowledge in a certain sector, and so almost like that expertise gives you the ability to be so clear and simple because you know so much. How do you filter that?
Yeah, but I think there's some founders that have deep expertise but cannot articulate it.
Yeah.
And don't don't have that clarity of thought. So in some ways I think the input required for clarity of thought is slope of learning more than it is expertise. Like it's the ability to learn really quickly and really well, such that you can consume a tremendous amount of information, but then be able to explain it concisely to somebody else. And so that's probably the trait I look for, especially in this moment where technology is evolving so quickly and things are changing in our market so fast. That ability to learn really quickly and adjust, in some ways to have strong footwork, is maybe the most important gene that I'm trying to assess in founders. Back to your question, how do you assess that?
Yeah.
That's the thing I obsess over and like I'm constantly thinking about every day. And so one of my latest questions that I've been asking founders is, hey, just take me through what's unfolded in the business or what you've learned in the last couple months or in the last quarter, just to try to understand a bit more of the game film. Because of course, unfortunately, we're often seeing founders just in one moment in time and having to make a quick decision. The best, Confido, which you brought up earlier, is a great example of this, where we got to see some of that game film and then said to them, hey, would you consider doing a Series A now with us? But unfortunately, a lot of the time it's just this moment in time that we get to assess a founder in a company. And so asking what has unfolded over the last quarter and then seeing what they say and seeing how they say it is one test. I also have my own like internal conviction tests, which obviously we'll only know in the fullness of time how strong those were as a signal for the company's success. But I find if I'm really still thinking about the idea that evening, if I'm proactively reaching out to a bunch of people that day that I've met a company for the first time, I just can't get it out of my head. Like there's something there that I should latch onto. If I find myself talking to my wife about it and it's very easy to explain, or someone who's not in our day-to-day adventure land, that's a positive signal. And so those are some of the things that I try to do to sort of assess the simplicity, clarity, simplicity of the idea, powerfulness of the idea, clarity of thought in the founder.
So interesting. Yeah, it makes so much sense. I think too, one thing I've enjoyed is like meeting founders who write their ideas down and sort of forces them to consolidate and have that, like you said, crazy slip of learning is important, but also sharing that in a very clear and concise way. I wanted to talk to you a little about some of the things that I think make Footwork unique. One of them being 4 investments a year. And you talk a lot about equal partnership, which I know there's just 2 of you right now, but I would imagine you use that language a lot because things might change down the line. I'd love to hear more about where do you see Footwork going, if there are any firms that really inspire you. And specifically, I want to hone in on this equal partnership piece and the 4 investments per year, because for those of you who don't know, 4 in our business is extremely concentrated. I think it's amazing because I think you get to build such deep relationships and such deep conviction. So I think that more people need to skew towards that approach versus the spray and pray. So I'm with you there, but 4 is certainly on the more concentrated end if you look at our business. So I'd love to just understand a little bit more about where things are going and some of these pieces I think that make you unique.
Yeah, so I think, there are certain characteristics that we want to remain true because we believe them very deeply to be ingredients for success in early stage venture. And so I think you've touched on several of them. Being equal partners, it removes so many of the conversations and dynamics that I think lead to partnerships having a lack of longevity. And it puts you on the same page. It means you can be completely equally invested in every partnership you have. And so I find it very difficult to believe that will change at Footwork. We are pretty dogmatic about early stage venture. The way we see it doesn't scale. It's it's about us really partnering with the founders, developing context on them and their business, therefore being a strong thought partner in the couple of key moments every year that they actually need help and guidance and support through. And so we take that very seriously, and that is very difficult to do across many companies every year, and tons of companies in perpetuity. And so so those are some of the things that I think will remain true to who we are. And then I think there's a constant question that we have of sort of how do we label the companies that we invest in. At the end of the day, what success looks like for us is being one of the 5 to 10 firms that many founders want to go to for their seed or Series A round as they're thinking about who they want to lead that round. That's what we hope to be when we grow up. But the sort of definition of what those companies are is something we constantly wrestle with, and so that's more of an open sort of book to what it becomes. You also asked which are some of the firms that we get inspired by.
Yeah.
They are firms that rhyme with us, that have equal partnerships, that have backed companies that 30 years later are still going and compounding at scale. That's one of the sort of success metrics I have for my career is can we invest in a handful of companies? I'm not greedy, but a handful where we led the seed or the Series A, and 30 plus years from now, we're still holding those companies personally. Of course, we'll have to distribute the stock and returns to our LPs along the way, but I personally want to hold on to those companies forever. And I think with Canva, Farmzog, hopefully a few that I've been lucky to be involved with already, that will be the case. But so which of the firms that have done that? I think firms like Benchmark and USV and a handful of others have done that repeatedly now and across a number of companies. And so we very much look up to them.
Yeah, the artisanal craft of venture, as some say. But it can be hard. I mean, how do you think about competing with multi-stage firms at the seed and the A? This is like the classic question that everyone's talking about now. These multi-stage firms are only getting bigger and bigger. And then you have more of the artisanal, like you said, the USV, the Benchmark, Footwork, where sort of more around the like 200, 300 million mark. What do you think the value prop is there? If a founder's listening and they got a term sheet from one of the big multi-stage firms and a term sheet from one of the more artisanal firms, who to go with, and what's the case there for both?
It's such a different choice. So I just think ultimately we have to believe with our model that enough of the great founders want a partner like us as their seed or Series A lead. And we deeply believe that. And the reasons for why they should want a partner like us is, number one, it's this combination of exceptional investing and operating experience in our equal partnership. And again, that can be very valuable for founders throughout their journey. Number two, that we only make a handful of investments every year, and so this particular investment will really matter to us. And we as founders and leaders of our firm as equal partners are not going anywhere. And so you're not going to have, a different person serve on your board 5-10 years from now. Like, we're going to be with you for that entire journey. You really, really matter. I think the third is, in particular areas, I do believe we are really great. And so a recent example of a company that had many offers in a couple days, but chose to work with us, is a company called Anything, which is a very easy way to build a mobile app, a web app that is production ready, so you can actually launch it in the App Store and have that be your business.
Mm-hmm.
And
beautiful landing page, by the way. Anything.
Yeah, they've got, I think, really great taste as a team in product and in sort of brand. And so I think if you talk to Dhruv and Marcus, the founders of Anything, they would say what they're building rhymes with Canva and with several other companies that Mike and I have worked with that are both consumer and enterprise in their DNA, and are growing organically and quickly amongst consumers and prosumers. Perhaps one day will infiltrate the enterprise. And I think we have a world-class set of experiences in that type of product and business. And so, they could have worked with a multi-stage big firm, but they know that we're going to take the commitment really seriously. We have exceptional expertise in this particular domain. I think we have a growing brand ourselves and track record. That obviously that's going to come over time and hopefully add to their probability of success. And then just as people, I think we found a lot of alignment on values and principles as well, and that matters so much. Like, we're ultimately in such a people business on every dimension.
Absolutely. So much of this business too is just about compounding, like you said. Like, the Canva win is helping you get into Anything, and then the Canva and Anything wins will help you get into the next one. And I think it's just patience, honestly, and doing reps. One thing we didn't touch on is geo specificity. So we're now in New York, which it's fun you're here for this week. How do you think about investing, and in terms of what geos you're most excited about? And you shared some really interesting anecdotes about some of the New York founders you've backed. I'd love for you to share with everyone sort of how you're spending your time here in New York, and how you think about where you invest across the US.
It's interesting because I grew up in the UK. My parents are of Indian origin. I go back to India almost every year. I live in San Francisco. But I went to college on the East Coast, and
you're all over. You're international.
Then, my sort of best investments in my career have been in Sydney, Australia, and New York, and a bunch outside the Bay Area. So I actually have not tried to bucketize companies by geo over the years. I've tried to just seek out the very best founders. Building something that has some early signs of deep customer love in markets that I think are a bit unobvious but will become really big. And I think you can build great businesses from everywhere. New York has been particularly good to me over the years, so it's always special to come here. Worked in a company during college, Artsy, that's still based here in New York. And I feel like my hit rate of investments has been high in New York, in the Shasta era. Companies like The Farmer's Dog and pet food, Hinge, the dating app, Bridget, a consumer fintech company, Frame.io, a video collaboration software company. These were all investments. I think all four of those were ones where we did the Series A. And in Windows, I was coming in New York more than 10 times a year for those companies' board meetings. And they've all turned into awesome New York success stories. And then in the Footwork era, we have, I think, 7 out of 22 of the founders we've backed, the CEOs that we've backed, are in New York. Some of those companies are hybrid or remote companies, but many of them, most of them, are in-person companies in New York as well. And I'm really excited about that set of companies when I think about them. GPT-0 and AI detection software, Honeydew and consumer healthcare, a co-investment I have with with Rex.
He loves that company.
And Confido, which you mentioned earlier, Kara and Justin, which is an OS for CPG brands. Reflex AI, which we had a board meeting for yesterday. So just a set of companies that we're very excited about in this city. And I think there's something about the sort of diversity and excellence bar in New York that I think breeds special, talented people to want to be here and to build great companies from here.
Yeah, and I think earlier you were talking a lot about how you like interdisciplinary companies, and I feel like there's no better city than New York to be an interdisciplinary person. You know, like you can see, I saw a Broadway show last night, and then you can go to like what was it called? Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York.
Oh, fun.
Very long name.
Wow.
I think it should be shortened to Two Strangers, but it was extremely good.
Yeah. That's so amazing. Like
you can go to all these different things, you know, go to like a political thing, go to like a Broadway show, go to like a fashion show, go to a tech event. Like, so it's so interdisciplinary.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay, one last question, and then we'll get to our lightning round.
Okay.
Why the name Footwork? So we've kind of hinted at it. You've thrown the name Footwork in a little bit in our chat. Why name that your firm?
So Footwork is the foundational skill for playing, competing in lots of different activities. You know, tennis, cricket, football, dancing, boxing. And as we were ideating names for the firm, this was during the pandemic times, I was teaching my wife how to play tennis, and I was constantly saying things like, babe, you've got to watch your footwork. Like, it's not just about swinging at the ball, it's about where your feet are. And so literally the name Footwork came to me in a dream. I woke up and I said, wow, the name of the firm could be Footprint, Footstep, or Footwork, and started thinking about those names more that day and texting Mike about them and realizing there isn't another company that has the name Footwork across any industry, which was really interesting. Looking at the dictionary definition, which says an adroit response to new opportunity, which to me is something so important for founders to be able to do. And so we just got really excited about the name and the connotations of that name and how authentic it felt to some of the passions Mike and I have in our lives. And so it just stuck. And I think, some people like it. One person I know said she doesn't think it's ambitious enough as a name. It doesn't evoke like success and ambition quite like some other venture firms, but it fits us well. And, one of our values as a firm is grounded, and sort of remaining that way, in the work that we do. We're only as good as our next investment. And to me, Footwork really, the name really speaks to that value and vice versa.
Yeah, well, even just the simple visualization of like your foot is on the ground, like to be able to do footwork, you are grounded. You have to be close to the ground to be able to move fast. I like the name for what it's worth.
Thank you.
And I think actually they've done studies where if you have a K in your name, you're a lot more successful as a company, and I would extend that to a firm. Sort of like Coca-Cola, Kodak, Spanx, Nike, you can name them all. So, if nothing else, Canva, yeah, exactly. Portfolio companies, Confido, yeah. If you work in venture or startups, you know the constant juggling act. Replying to messages from co-investors, founders, LPs, customers, and teammates, all hitting your personal number. I know this very well. We all hand out our cell, which means your EA can't help an iMessage, and important threads get buried. That's why I'm very excited about Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's built for founders and investors like us who want communication that feels personal but stays organized. Quo gives you a dedicated business line on your existing cell phone. And if you already have a business number, you can bring it with you for free. Plus, you'll get call summaries, transcripts, and an AI voice agent called Sona that can answer and schedule when you're offline. We're actually cooking up something fun with the Quo team right now and using that same voice AI tech in a new way for our firm. More soon, but it's a great reminder that you can use voice AI to stay top of mind of your customers' needs. Quo is trusted by over 90,000 businesses and rated .1 on G2 for customer satisfaction. You can get 20% off your first 3 months at quo.com/trailblazers. That's quo.com/trailblazers. I've actually used Gusto at 3 different companies, and every time it's been such a relief. It's simple, it's reliable, my paycheck was always on time, no drama. And unlike the big clunky payroll systems out there, Gusto is affordable and designed for teams like ours. Gusto is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all-in-one, remote-friendly, and incredibly easy to use. So you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/trailblazers and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/trailblazers. One more time, gusto.com/TRAILBLAZERS. Amazing. Okay, well, let's get into our lightning round. Please just answer whatever comes to mind. If you want to expand on it, you can. Okay, let's do it. Book in hand or podcast in ears?
In this season of life, podcast in ears. Hopefully one day, book in hand again. Although I do really enjoy bedtime book reading with my kids.
I love that. How old are the kids?
Older one is 4, younger one's 15 months, 2 girls.
2 girls. How special. Favorite podcast that you listen to these days?
I still love Stratechery, Ben Thompson's podcast, and his writing in general. Been a huge inspiration for me. I feel like he was the sort of pioneer of paid newsletters, which I don't have. But as a writer, just his clarity of thought.
So you were seeing a theme here.
Yeah, how early he's been to lots of ideas. So I really enjoy listening to him still.
Amazing. Good rec for folks. Morning person or night owl?
I think, unfortunately, my best thinking is at night. I wish it were in the morning, but I think where my sort of natural element is being a night owl.
Yeah, well, I mean, you came up with the name during a dream, so that tracks. You know,
yeah.
Overnight, good things happen. Yeah. Cooking dinner or ordering in?
Aspiration, cooking dinner. What actually happens a lot, ordering in.
Any favorite spots?
We have a couple places in San Francisco that we love. San Francisco is great for Burmese food, as an example. So we have, Burma Superstar and Burma Love and New Burma, which is a place close to us that I love tea leaf salads, for example.
Ooh, I don't think I've ever had one.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, when I come to San Francisco, I'm going to go and I'll let you know. VC or bootstrapping?
Well, I have to say VC because it's my life's work. But I do think that not enough founders think about, does venture capital make sense for their business? And so I do think for a lot of businesses, bootstrapping, funding based on profits, building the business that way is a much better idea.
Yeah, or like the in-between, which is seed strapping, which we talked about with a guest a couple of days ago. You raise a little, and then you kind of use the profits to fuel you. Networking dinner or big conference?
Networking dinner. Yeah, I love getting to actually know people and have a real conversation. And I find conferences really hard, like just random people coming up to me and having just sort of the superficial chat.
Do you speak at big conferences often, or are you not as much of a speaker?
Only from time to time. I don't find it to be that valuable for actually finding great founders. That being said, I think so much of our job ends up being maximizing the surface area for serendipity.
It's like so random, so much of it.
100%. And so that's probably where I will nudge myself to sort of do the extra thing, because you never know where the next great one can come from. But where do I get my energy from? Smaller events.
Totally. Hire slow or fire fast?
I'm actually more of a hire slow in nature person. I mean, you look at Footwork as, putting that into action. We have 5 people on our team. It's 2 of us, Mike and me, as the whole investment team, and we have 3 great folks on the operations side. But I love being part of a smaller team and organization, having everyone wear multiple hats, and trying to look for sort of exceptional people in every single person you bring onto the team. I think for a company, the answer there is more nuanced.
Depends on the company. Depends how fast they're growing. Is there one thing that you look for in every hire, whether they're on the operations side or the investing side, when you were maybe hiring more at Shasta, that you think is extremely, extremely important?
I definitely look for sort of match to our values. And so, we have 5 simple values at Footwork: excellence, teamwork, learning, joy, and grounded. And so I look for people that, really feel aligned to those. And then back to the comment I said earlier, I think this slope of learning trait is so important right now. And so that's probably something I index on in founders as I think about the great people they should be hiring, as I think about, who we add to the Footwork team. I think that's a very important characteristic.
Absolutely. 10 small wins or 1 moonshot? And by the way, VCs give different answers for this.
I mean, I guess of those two, I guess 1 moonshot. I think we're in a massive power law business. And so I am constantly thinking about, can this company be the one? And will this investment be the best one that we've ever been a part of, as a way to sort of almost continually raise the bar?
Yeah. Being early or being right?
Being right. I think that is back to the sort of the power law. It's the thing that leads to the incredible returns, and I'd rather be right than be early in the sense of being like the first investor in the company. So I guess that probably matches to sort of our stage focus of seed and Series A versus what you and others do a great job of at pre-seed.
Yeah. I think honestly, to your point earlier, it's just about matching to the values and the preferences, and you can win in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Never post on social media again. And I'm going to send this to never publish another, Substack again, or never fundraise another $1 again.
Never fundraise another $1 again. I think I love writing for my own thinking, and I think some of that can really benefit others too, hence why I enjoy posting a subset. Fundraising doesn't give me much energy. I never want to talk about the AUM of our firm. I want to have great returns. So yeah, if we can return many, many multiples of these funds and not, need to fundraise again, amazing.
You can do the homebrew thing, you can just take your own money and instead of LPs. Yeah. Is AI overhyped or underhyped?
I think probably in the general public, it's underhyped. I just think it's such a tidal wave coming to so many, if not every single industry, that I think the average person doesn't truly realize yet how much things will change.
Absolutely. Well, we're lucky we get to see a lot of it. Yeah. Amazing. Well, can you tell everyone how they can support you? And, back to our randomness comment, if there's a founder out there who wants to share more about what they're building with you and they're building the next brilliant thing, how can they find you?
Reach out to me, by subscribing to the Substack, responding to any of my posts, emailing me, DMing me. I'm just at NBT on X. And I think if you're building something that's sort of both consumer and enterprise in its DNA, or, the ambition to sort of tackle both, something that's interdisciplinary, something that's already starting to work and really resonate with customers, would love to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you for being here.
Thanks,
Erica.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. On Trailblazers, we're always talking about multiplying your impact, and that's exactly what Athena helps you do. Athena pairs you with a world-class executive assistant who becomes a true force multiplier for your business and your life. Working with my Athena assistant has been transformative. Gab was instrumental in raising Park Rangers Capital's fund in ways that I could have never imagined an assistant could contribute, from closing six-figure checks to identifying new LPs we should meet to matching my tone perfectly in follow-up emails. He's elevated my capacity as a founder by giving me more time to focus on the highest leverage work. Athena isn't just about scheduling meetings, it's about unlocking leverage. Hundreds of founders, investors, and executives trust Athena to free their time and scale their impact. Athena is offering our listeners $2,000 off for their first year of service and priority onboarding. And you want that, trust me, there's a very long wait list. When you're ready to multiply your impact and free up time for the things only you can do, go to athenago.me/Erica-Wenger. That's athenago.me/ERICA-WENGER. Thanks so much for listening to the Trailblazers podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. You can also support our work by sharing it with a friend or leaving a quick review. It helps more contrarian builders find us. For more on Park Rangers Capital and our community of elephant founders, head to parkrangerscap.com or find me online at Erica_Wenger. Until next time, keep trailblazing.